For Sunday, November 13th, you've found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, there's one word: trumped. Georgia remains a red state, and the voters like taxes for MARTA and transportation. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
You know, most years following an election that goes my way, I open this broadcast by saying, not this time. This was a very serious election. It isn't time to gloat or anything. This was a nation in anger, and we're going to develop that theme as we go along. But Donald Trump, of course, is the 45th president of the United States. And I want to throw out one fact, because we're going to come back to Trump in a few minutes, but one fact. The electorate, the nation, median income in the United States was below that of 1999. I think that explains the election of Donald Trump more than any single thing. But our job here is pretty much state and local, so we're going to talk about that and come back to Trump in a few minutes. And I want to begin with you, Phil. Johnny Isakson swept to victory. No real chance of a runoff for Jim Barksdale. Alan Buckley, as always, got fewer votes than had been anticipated. And Johnny Isakson goes without a 9-week runoff.
Right. I think we all predicted that on the Georgia Gang, so we'll pat ourselves on the back. And, of course, the Trump percentage was 5 points in Georgia statewide. And so I want to give a shout out to our Fox 5 Opinion Savvy poll that also do it for Insider Advantage. They called it, as you remember, over a week before the election, 5 points. And so it was interesting, and it brought in, I think it helped bring in more votes in Georgia.
Well, I think when you just hit on something that I was going to mention. If you look at Johnny Isakson results, and you look in certain Republican areas that I frequent, Donald Trump ran well behind popular Republican candidates in Georgia. And that was the white women vote, especially those with college educations. He won them, but he trailed in some cases.
In certain cases, North Georgia, in fact, even Johnny Isakson will admit that the Trump vote put him over, so he wouldn't have a runoff. So I would break it down. There were votes in North Georgia that exceeded all records.
But he ran much stronger than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He had
Of course.
55,000 more votes than Donald
Of
Trump.
course.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And plus, in Cobb and Gwinnett went for Clinton.
That's true. And let me make a point about Cobb County, because that's kind of been the big political news of the week.
I thought it was a mistake when it was reported.
Well, and a lot of people did, but I wasn't surprised at Gwinnett County, because as we've discussed on the show, that's becoming more of a Democratic county. But you break it down, and I've talked to some of the folks that we all respect, and it was the what I call the weak, moderate Republican never-Trumpers. And you had, for instance, Neil Warren, a very conservative anti-illegal immigration sheriff, winning overwhelmingly, had Johnny Isakson winning overwhelmingly, but Trump lost Republican votes, probably from a lot of women.
Women, yeah, that's what it was. Now, before we go on to the other results, I want to turn to each of you, Alexis and Jeff. What have the Democrats got left? Jim Barksdale was obviously one of the worst candidates in the history of statewide politics, with his silly cap and nothing but his own money to bring to the party. He couldn't speak effectively. He couldn't argue issues effectively. He ran as he's a Wall Street guy who ran as Bernie Sanders. Please, a lifelong of contrition. He's a terrible candidate. Dubose Porter's the chairman of the party, right?
Right.
His county went 64-35 for Trump. Where is the next generation of Democratic leadership in the state of Georgia? If you assume that people like Kasim Reed and Stacey Abrams and all really can't be effective in the next few years competing for statewide office.
Well, I think that it's very promising. I think that you see a silver lining in the votes in Henry Clayton,
right.
Henry Gwinnett, and Cobb that went Democratic. I think that if there had been more credible Democratic down-ballot candidates in those counties, you may have seen some higher vote counts there as well. And I think that if you'd had a stronger person at the top of the ticket in the U.S. Senate race on the Democratic column, you would have seen a few more votes in that.
Who is that?
Well, and I think that you're going to see that develop over the next couple of years. I think that there's a real opportunity here. Yeah, and it wasn't just Georgia and those isolated counties. You had counties all over the nation that had voted for Barack Obama who voted for Donald Trump. I mean, and what is the consistent strain there? It's change, 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 and wanting change. And it's happened at countless areas all over the nation. Nobody anticipated it.
All right, let's
I also think that the Stacey Abrams and Kasim Reed are the future of the party. There is a very strong bench. Barksdale also, this was his first time political office, so he didn't have the experience or the connections or the network.
Well, this certainly didn't work for Kasim Reed. He's not going to Washington.
No, and you know, if the Democrats are smart, if the
he
Democrats
might
are
very
smart,
well in 18.
they need to go to the center more. I mean, you know, here you had Barksdale basically talking about a socialist policy that was rejected here and around the country.
I don't believe that at all, and I don't think that it's a matter of ideology. I think it's more a matter of demographics. Those demographics are shifting. We can see them shifting. I know the Republicans say that they're not, but actually, when you look at Cobb and Gwinnett, obviously they are shifting. You know, we had centrist.
But Democrats here in Georgia aren't for socialism.
We had centrist candidates in Michelle Nunn and Jason Carter.
How'd that work out?
And how did that work out? Exactly. So I don't think it's a matter of ideology.
They did better than the left, but you know this, a lot of Georgia Democrats are pro-business and pro-free enterprise, and a message that goes against that, a lot of Democrats aren't going to buy anti-capitalistic.
Let me change the subject. I'm going to go to the Opportunity School District. Clearly, this state is going to remain an educational backwater. The voters have said, we don't want to advance the cause of education. We want to leave poor children illiterate and unjobbed.
That's not at all. That wasn't the message at all.
That was the message the electorate said.
The message was, we don't trust the state of Georgia to do this job, to take over.
And they trusted a Camp County school board?
They trust school boards. They trust local school boards more than they trust the person who created the problem in the first place, and that is the state of Georgia. And it's years and years and decades and generations of creating this situation in the first place. There are people out there, educators, parents, and others, who simply don't trust them.
Well, it is a disastrous vote. Phil, I look for Governor Deal to put in his agenda for January for the General Assembly some of what might have been the Opportunity School District.
Well,
specifically charter schools.
Yes, and I think you're also going to see on the agenda, and we've talked about this before, the changing of the school funding formula. It's a little complex. We can go into that another broadcast.
We got lots of time to do that.
We got lots of time to do that, but look for that too.
Yeah,
and by the way, the Amendment 3 on reconstituting the JQC, which I supported, and it looks like a large majority of Georgians supported.
Well, 3 amendments passed easily.
Right.
And the Opportunity School District lost horrifically.
Right, 60-40.
It shows you what out-of-state communist socialist money can do.
It
If
shows
bring
you the
in
power.
$5 million.
Come on, Dick. It shows you the power of teachers in the state of Georgia. And it's not the first time we've seen it.
That's right.
Guess
Lloyd
what?
Barnes lost his job
because
with that same power
teachers.
because he went against the teachers. And we see it time and time again. And sooner or later, a governor is going to learn that lesson.
Right.
Guess what? Nathan Deal has got a surprise coming for the teachers, I suspect. I don't think he's going to take this one lying down. In the House, the State House, Republicans lost 2 seats.
Right.
Republicans gained 1 in Brookhaven. Megan Hansen, who sat with us on the Georgia Gang, won a 300-vote victory over Taylor Bennett, who, by the way, had the potential to be a Democrat star down the road.
He still does.
Georgia likes quarterbacks, and he was one.
Congratulations to Megan.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, and so I guess when we come back, we're going to talk about another of my favorite subjects. New cities. Praise the Lord. Create more cities.
Mercy
Remove power closer to the people.
See,
when we
like the
return, New
Opportunity
Cities
School
to
District.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Regular viewers know that this panelist loves new cities because they diminish the power of large urban counties that simply are not functional and too open to corruption.
I thought you liked big government.
No, I like
more
smaller
government.
No, smaller
more
government,
of it.
closer to the people.
Unlike the Opportunity School District, which would be
That would have been smaller.
That would have been an
closer
exception.
to the people, with local parents deciding the fate of those schools.
Oh, okay, with the state in charge of
So
it.
I'm in charge. I'm all for the grassroots, if you want to use the cliche. At any rate, the very confusing situation in South Fulton is now resolved.
Right.
Voters there by 59 to 41% voted to create a new city of South Fulton. I wish they had a better name for it, but that's okay. And in your own home turf of
Yes.
Stonecrest.
Stonecrest, large
in
city,
DeKalb County.
50,000 people.
Well, and by the way, the city of South Fulton's 100,000 people.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Big-
These are
big
large.
city.
These are large cities. Exactly
And,
right. That will probably grow in bureaucracy
Becomes the
and
fourth new
complexity.
city in DeKalb County, Stonecrest.
Yes.
They have an economic base. South Fulton, I'm not that sure of, though the studies show that it does. So what do you think? Now the shoe's on the other foot. These would be two Democratic cities.
I think that they're going to grow. I mean, you know, they start off, particularly Stonecrest, starts off with three main functions: parks and zoning, and forgot the third one. No law enforcement, no police protection, anything like that. And I think over time these things are going to grow. And you're going to see people paying municipal taxes for the first time. They're not going to like it. You're going to have new, you know, you're going to have you're going to have a new layer. Going to have a new layer of government.
Stonecrest is going to privatize some services, which has been a big model, like Sandy Springs.
It will privatize some services. It's a possibility, and I think that it's a good possibility, at least in the case of Stonecrest, of being able to sort of change the image of DeKalb County and create some opportunity. And that's really what the city is all about. It's about creating a new economic development environment,
By the
and
way,
that's what they want
do
to
you know
do.
what the average municipal tax in the city of Dunwoody is?
What is it?
For a typical homeowner?
What's that?
$70.
$70.
For $70, they get a
$70?
crackerjack police force.
Yeah.
They get to control all their zoning.
Yeah.
They get to build parks.
Right.
What was DeKalb doing with all that money is what you have to ask. Now, let's stay in DeKalb for a minute.
Okay.
Other winds have changed in that county. Michael Thurmond easily won as chief executive, no doubt there. He is a proven, steady leader with an absolutely incorruptible reputation. Anybody
Right.
disagree with that?
I think we all are happy with
Yep.
that.
Sheriff
You know,
Jeff Mann, another steadying influence, will return.
Right.
And I think the future of the county is a little brighter with one commission seat still up for grabs with a runoff coming that we'll talk about in the future.
Yeah,
Right.
but you know, you got Sharon Bond Sutton was defeated by Steve Bradshaw.
Right.
You know, the district attorney who we've widely criticized on this panel has been replaced by Sherry Boston.
Correct.
You've got, and we've seen this before in DeKalb County, voters rising up and fundamentally changing their government. And it happened as far back as Cynthia McKinney, and it's happening again today with all of these, I think, really exciting changes with Michael Thurmond at the top. And he's going to lead this county in ways that you cannot imagine. You're talking about an 80% win for Michael Thurmond. I think it was 81 in every segment of the county, north, south, east, west.
Oh,
That,
no
and that is
question.
what you call a mandate.
Yeah,
right?
That's
there's
a
no
mandate.
question. He's the anti-Vernon Jones. He's perfect. By the way, Vernon
Speaking
Jones
is
won
back.
his House seat and
That's
is
right.
returning.
He'll be
That's
back.
good
He'll be
because
back.
Vernon's colorful and he'll make news for us.
Well, and he's responsive to his constituents. So he's good. He'll be
Yeah.
a good representative. in
Well,
the
know,
field.
to his credit, he has always said that Donald Trump would win.
That's right.
Has Vernon said that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the two have some things in common. They're brash. You know, they say
Showman.
they speak what's on their mind. South Fulton, the new city of South
Yeah.
Fulton, will have a lot of money for roads and bridges, folks, because Fulton County voters overwhelmingly approved that 3/4 cent sales tax for everything but MARTA, for roads, bridges, intersections, stuff that cities I've seen can
talking
do
about
well.
Fulton County.
Yes.
City of South
And of
Fulton.
course, there's
starts
other
out as
districts.
a
I think they're going to
Extra
come back with a
extra
quarter.
money.
I think they're
Extra
going to come
money.
back with that quarter vote too for MARTA, especially after seeing the mandate from the city of Atlanta with its half penny for MARTA. I think
Right.
I think Fulton County is going to come back and do the same
So
thing,
Atlanta
and
passed
hopefully
two-
DeKalb will as well.
Atlanta
Right.
passed 2 new taxes, one for roads and infrastructure,
And
one
one
for
for
MARTA.
MARTA.
So, the rest of Fulton County, you included in Sandy Springs,
Right.
passed a lot of money for road improvements.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying about South Fulton. Sandy Springs, Johns Creek, they're going to be awash in cash
It was a narrow
to do stuff.
a narrow win there in North Fulton, and I think we should
Well, they-
tell that
yeah,
all around Georgia, a lot of these SPLOST won, and we have always talked about when you have specific projects listed and people know their neighborhoods and where the improvements are, that improves the yes vote.
Well, it has improved the yes vote, I think, also by localizing a lot of these
Right.
votes, Phil, right?
That
Because
was
we had this huge, massive regional
congressional
thing in
districts and-
2012,
yeah, it
right?
was-
T-SPLOST, and it didn't pass because even though it had a very specific list,
Trust
it didn't
in
pass because
smaller government closer to the people, Jeff.
I think that when it comes to
Just like the
these
opportunity school
transportation
districts.
initiatives, you're exactly right. So you've got Fulton and the city of Atlanta going out there and doing these things, and really, when you combine it with what the state's doing, the 400 interchange and the investment with what was in fact a tax
the
increase.
largest project.
Right, exactly right. You're going to see a lot of
Everybody
road
wants to see
infrastructure.
improvement in
All right,
the
real
traffic.
quickly, we got to get out of this segment. There was other news besides elections and politics. UPS, I didn't follow this one. UPS is moving a big hub to the city of Atlanta.
Right.
How many jobs? I'm not even sure.
1,200 plus.
Georgia Power donated a bunch of money to the police for body armor or vests and whatnot. The Regents approved the very expensive purchase of Turner Field by Georgia State and private donors. And no student fees or tuition money is going to be used to buy Turner Field and create the campus. It looked like it sailed through without...
It sailed through and the Regents were happy. And let me just say this too. You may have seen the news the other day that Coca-Cola and AT&T and several other corporations have been giving money to the World Congress Center. Have that giant campus in Atlanta, and they're going to upgrade Centennial Park. And there's some exciting things going on in that whole sprawling area that is a huge economic generator.
Sure. But when you combine that, I think, with the new stadium and with the purchase of Underground Atlanta and the redevelopment there, you're really going to see
one
city is really
another important story that we're not even going to have time to talk about. That's Governor Deal naming new judges to really
Let's talk about that next week, because
next week I want to do
some of these judges are friends of ours and are some good picks.
And finally, a woman.
Well, not finally. There are lots of women.
There's been women on the high court.
I'm talking about the governor's recent appointments.
There won't be a woman in the White House. Anyway, all right. I'm sorry.
That was
when we
bad.
come back,
Pull yourself together.
I almost I said I wasn't going to do that, and I couldn't resist it. All right, when we come back to Donald Trump, back to the sea of red in Georgia, though not purple, just red. And who might be going to Washington with Donald Trump? Some big names might be on that list. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
We already mentioned that Georgia remained red, though there were little fingers of purple in Cobb County, and in Henry County and Gwinnett County appear to be going the way of the Democrats. Not overwhelmingly.
Right. Let me say in Columbia County, in my old neck of the woods, Columbia County has become a real bastion of Republican turnout and pretty much doubled turnout. Really nothing has changed. You mentioned Democrat Chairman DuBose Porter. He's flatlined. Now, as a conservative Republican, I hope he stays as chairman because nothing has advanced since he's been chairman. If I were a Democrat, I'd want a new state chairman.
By the way,
to pump
Columbia
up
County,
the vote.
just for history buffs, back when you were at the helm of the Augusta paper, Columbia County flat out elected Paul Coverdell to the U.S. Senate with a late surge. Do you remember that?
That's exactly right. And let me just say, too, when we're looking at Georgia results, Senator David Perdue was probably Donald Trump's biggest champion in this state. And if he's offered a job in the Trump administration, he could probably get anything he wants. Now, a lot of us want him to stay there in the U.S. Senate.
Well, let's talk. That's where I was going. Thank you. David Perdue, I think, wanted to run for president as a businessman and as an outsider. That's what got him to the U.S. Senate in Georgia.
Right.
Well, Donald Trump's pretty much done that now. So I wonder if David Perdue has an interest in staying in the Senate. Now that they're firmly in the majority, he can get some things done. But on the other hand, maybe if he's offered the job as Commerce Secretary, that's the place to be.
Well, that
trade
would be,
deals and
that's right.
He's got the experience.
And you know what? He does.
He has global experience for sure.
He does. And there's another one that we all know, and that's Congressman Tom Price, who will be a critical player now as the Trump transition continues. And as we tape, of course, we're going to be, thank God, repealing and replacing Obamacare. Tom Price has had a plan for years on the big question is now what's going to replace Obamacare. So Tom Price will be a big player on Capitol Hill.
And I suspect it's going to be more of a tweaking than a replacement because
I
it's going to be difficult to dismantle it all.
Well, you're going to have a transition period. You'll have a transition period where you're going to have to. You can buy private insurance again. There'll be competition again.
That's what they do now.
Well, no,
There's no competition.
It's been a command and control.
I don't think that it was the president's intention for there to be these walls between states, so that limited competition. Everybody wanted that to come down, and Trump wants it to come down too.
So you're saying he supported a screwed up system all along?
No. I'm saying that
it was the Republicans that screwed it up.
I'm saying that government works incrementally, not all at one time.
Well, we're going to be gone with Obamacare.
And we're going to see some new iterations of health care.
You know, that was the biggest applause line of the Trump campaign was when he called for repealing Obamacare.
And it was a hidden part of the electoral outcome too, because those premiums came due about 2 weeks before the election.
Yes, exactly right. It did.
With
I
the
think that it
huge
may have
increases.
affected the outcome, but the fact of the matter is you've got 18 million people out there. We've got the lowest rate of uninsured Americans ever in our history, and the question is whether or not Republicans are going to just reverse all of that,
To
get
finish
all
Phil's
those gains.
point, I
Right.
think what you were, we veered off track, but Tom Price could become the Secretary of HHS, Health and Human Services,
Well-
or he could stay as a key leader in the House to oversee the dismantling of
That's right.
Obamacare.
I think Ben Carson is going to be another person that can have anything he wants. I think Trump, the businessman, is going to have a short list of people for these cabinet positions, and he'll be interviewing them just like he would for a job.
Right, and I also think with the replacement of Obamacare, he's probably going to work as much with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi as he is with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, because he already knows them very well, and he doesn't know anything. He just met Mitch
I
McConnell
would
for the
say
first
this,
time this week.
he started off with a great meeting with President Obama,
Yes, he
which
did.
I think we would all hail. And yes, Alexis, he did meet with Democrat and Republican leaders. And he's got a heck of a, you talked about a mandate, Dick, he's got a heck of 100 days, and I think some things are going to be finally no gridlock.
I don't think
I
he
want
has
to
a
use
mandate. I
Obamacare to
wouldn't
make
Use the
characterize
word
that.
mandate.
Look at the Electoral College map.
Look at the popular vote.
Look at the Electoral College map.
Look at the popular
popular
vote
vote.
and ask
It was
yourself
even.
what a democracy ought to be able to do.
popular
Well,
vote.
first
In
of
a
all,
democracy.
we're not a
As-
democracy.
as
In a
Donald
we're
Trump
not a
said,
democracy.
We're not.
the system
We're a
is
republic.
rigged.
We are
We're
a
not.
constitutional
We're a constitutional republic. We're
And
not a
remember
democracy.
that. You were never
the
part of
founding
that.
fathers were scared to
it's-
death
How
of
do you elect?
democracy.
How do you elect your mayor,
have to
your
get out.
governor, your senator? By popular vote.
We need to have him go back
Do you
to,
know
to
what the
political
electoral
science 101.
The Electoral College is a slavery relic,
James,
and you
yes,
hold
has
on
nothing
to
to
it.
do with slavery.
I knew you would
Let
bring
me tell
that
you
up.
what.
Because
Do you know
the
what?
system
It
is
had nothing to do
rigged.
with slavery.
No, it has to do with
The system is
James. It has to
rigged.
do with James
Everything has to do
Apportionment
with
on
slavery.
Congress and the Electoral College had nothing to do with slavery. Did you ever hear of a guy named James
This
Madison?
election, I just mentioned Madison. This election was based on anger, that anger that you just displayed. The American people have had enough of it. They've had enough of it. 83% of the voters who said change was the most important thing voted for Donald Trump. You tell me that Obamacare, passed only with Democratic support, wasn't a key factor. They're sick of it. They're sick of the Washington establishment. And then the other thing is, you tell me that transgender ruling in North Carolina didn't hurt Hillary Clinton and cost her that state.
That's all
It's all
fine
the
and well.
elites
A
and their
majority
imperiousness.
of Americans supported someone who did not win. And it was only because of an electoral college.
That's
An
right.
electoral college that Donald Trump
Look, the moms
says
who
is-
lost. The moms who lost in the
Listen to me.
streets
Listen to
trying
me.
to meet up with 18
Donald
wheelers.
Trump says it is a disaster for a democracy, a sham and a travesty.
And he certainly
wrong.
would have been out there.
gotta get out.
The system is rigged. The system is rigged.
You're going to have to give an open mind to Mr. Trump. You're going to have to learn to have
We
an
got to
open
get
mind.
out. We got to get
The
out.
election was
The
rigged.
system is rigged.
The election-
The election was rigged,
It was.
just like he said.
It was. When we come back, winners and losers, stay with us. Remember, mob rule, that's what we're trying to stop. Check out your local expressways. You want to see what the Democrats think. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll begin that with Phil Kent.
All right, well, obviously, Donald
By the way,
J.
Veterans
Trump.
Day was Friday.
Oh, that's right. We
Yes.
got that.
Thank you.
Congratulations
As a
to you.
veteran,
You're a veteran.
As a veteran, thank you very much. The U.S. Army Military Police, Fort Gordon was where I did my active duty. But
For
anyhow,
flex cuffs.
Mr. Trump, obviously the winner, and I think a lot of the average working men and women of America, especially out in the Midwest and some of those states that never went
The Rust Belt.
Republican, winners. I think that we've got some losers, and that was the mainstream liberal media, biased media, and I think that the AJC was
Pollsters.
pretty bad too. And then I'm going to finish up with pollsters there too. And as we talked about Obamacare, finally, and on a personal note, I've been talking and writing about immigration control for over 25 years.
You sure
I think
have.
we're going to have Homeland Security and border security now under Donald Trump.
It's going to be hard to root out all the liberals and subversives in the government now, though. Alexis, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to switch the subject and say that Eric Qualls-Beatty, the general manager of the Atlanta Marriott Marquis, Phil Noyes, the head of Proof of the Pudding, and Vincent Anthony, the head of the Center for Puppetry Arts, were all inducted into the Atlanta Convention Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau Hospitality Hall of Fame this week. So congratulations to the three of them for making Atlanta a great place. And we're all hoping that we will continue. Atlanta had 51 million visitors, and they're continuing to grow the tourism
If we
industry.
can keep the punks and pukes off the expressways, we have a chance. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh my.
Two political consultants who worked on the murder campaign, Fred Hicks and Justin Gibney. My hats off to both of them. They did a terrific job, and we saw that in that outcome.
That's right.
Clear mandate, 70%, right? My other winner is going to be Elbridge Gerry, he of gerrymander fame. You know, he was one of the founding fathers, and he had this wonderful quote, and it is, "The evils we experience flow from the excesses of democracy." And if we haven't seen that this time, we never will. But this wasn't democratic, as you point out, Phil. We're not a democracy, right? We don't value majority rule because a majority of Americans voted for someone else.
That's right.
Elbridge Gerry is what James Madison was talking about when he said we fear mob rule, and we're going to have an electoral college and all that other sort of thing. So I'm getting a fast rap here. Hey, how about the Atlanta Hawks? Going to build an arena, put a D-League team in College Park. I think that's kind of cool. And finally, the American middle class awakened and spoke, and they spoke loudly. I was never a major Donald Trump fan, but I sure am a happy American this week. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.